So welcome everyone to Access UTV. My name's Michelle Edhouse, and today I have with me the amazing Heather Smith. Heather has been working in the field of PTSD, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. She's been working with Access Consciousness, as have I, and using those tools to change PTSD. So I'm so excited to have you here, Heather. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, Michelle, thank you so much for having me. I'm really thrilled to be talking with you about this topic today and wondering what we can change, what we can create, what we can open up as a new possibility. So, thanks.
Now, Heather, you're based in California. Tell me a little bit about what interested you about PTSD and what brought you to use the Access tools in that scenario.
So my father is a Vietnam veteran, and he had a huge amount of anger and alcoholism, drug addiction, and just all sorts of angst, not just from Vietnam and his experience there, but just in his life in general. And so he was a very intense guy, and I grew up around that intensity. And so he was never diagnosed having PTSD, but he just, he had so many symptoms and things that were obviously PTSD from his own abusive childhood and Vietnam and whatever else. He never talked about anything, but he was very angry. So, so growing up in that environment, I actually started to develop symptoms of PTSD that I didn't really know what it was, but in my 20s discovered what was going on, and that what I was experiencing had a name. Stuff. And it was really interesting though, because I wasn't physically abused. I wasn't nothing like horrible. I didn't have horrible events occur to me, but I was surrounded by people who were being sexually abused, physically abused, mentally abused, emotionally abused. And for me, I was a very sensitive person. So just being around the amount of abuse that I was around and being aware of it was enough for me to start to get the symptoms of post-traumatic stress and behave in the way that was indications of post-traumatic stress. So that was also really confusing though, because it's like, wow, I didn't realize post-traumatic stress, obviously it can come from dramatic, life-threatening experiences, but it also can come from the constant intensity of extreme anger and upset and, drug abuse and alcoholism and things like that. So it was an eye-opener. So that's what was that?
That's something that has come to my attention too, especially since I've written my book, that the PTSD, so many people have that point of view of, well, I haven't been a war veteran, or I haven't been through a huge traumatic event, a singular event that would cause, but it can be that build up, that ongoing intensity over a long period of time as well, that can be the creation of it as well. So I'm really glad that we're covering both sides of it here. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and it was really, debilitating for me in a lot of different ways. That again, it was hard to understand because it wasn't so obvious of what created it for me personally. So that got my interest, and that is really what started me on the journey of learning about energy and becoming aware of energy and working with the energies that I was swimming in basically and experiencing, and had really locked in my body and in my emotions and in my psyche. And so beginning to work with energies starting in my 20s, I didn't find access consciousness until I was, 28 when I discovered access consciousness. And it just was like, rocket ship ride, next level of creating ease with awareness of energy and a whole slew of tools to work energetically. Because I discovered just in my own experience that I could actually change my emotional state and physical manifestations of stress and anxiety and depression and all sorts of things by changing the energy. So it just, for me, it just created so much more ease and changed things a lot more quickly than the modalities that I had found before, were using from before. The other modalities worked, they did create change for me, and yet, Access Consciousness just took it to a whole nother level of ease for changing that. So that's what got me into it. so grateful.
Yeah, and that's another thing that I would really like to bring up, and thank you for bringing it up, is we're not saying that the tools that we have with Access Consciousness are the only ones that work. As you say, they exponentialize the change and they speed up the possibilities just so dynamically. I've worked with a number of people who have lived through a lot in their lives and are functioning from PTSD, and the change that they've chosen to receive using the tools it's just makes me feel so yummy.
Yeah, exactly.
So tell me a little bit about how you work with others with regards to PTSD, and because I know that you do private sessions as well. You've got a really cool website which has even got tools on there. People can go there and create some change straight away, which is very cool. So talk to me a little bit how you use the tools you have to create change with others.
Well, so I do private sessions with people, mostly over the phone, which is one of the great things with working with energy. You don't have to be in the same room or even on the same continent, so that's really exciting too, that this can go anywhere and has that ability. So, really it's, for me, working with people, it's working with them wherever they're at right now. So, some people come to me and they're in crisis and they are just deep in it. And so it's kind of, reaching out my hand and giving them a lift up with knowing that they have choices and that they have the ability to get through what they're going through. A lot of it's PTSD can be such a lonely thing. And so many people who have post-traumatic stress feel like they're alone and they don't know who they can talk to or how to talk about what they're going through. And, that's, it's like a sadness and frustration for me, the isolation that seems to come with these symptoms and these experiences. So if someone has the courage to open their mouth and let another person know what they're going through, even if they can't totally explain it, that can be a really powerful step. And so for me, it's really important to me that I can be a person who can show up and be present with them no matter what they've been through and how horrible or ugly it is for them, and be a space of no judgment. That's one of the biggest keys for me, that was for myself and with everybody that I've worked with, that shows up over and over again, that you can let go of the judgment of what is occurring in the moment, and also let go of the judgment of past experiences. That one thing on its own can be a huge transformation. And if you have PTSD and you're sitting in it right now with the symptoms and everything you've been through, that can be a tall order. And that could seem impossible, to have no judgment about it being wrong or bad, what you've been through. just, I really like to acknowledge the fact that they're willing to have the courage to reach out to another person to talk about what is going on. You know, as I said, PTSD, it can feel so isolating, and it's such a hard thing to explain to people who have never been through what they've been through and don't have the symptoms that they have. It's very hard for people without PTSD to get what the deal is, you know, get what's going on. So
yeah. So let's just have a look at that, because some people may be sitting there with the symptoms of PTSD and not even know it. And for some reason, they're watching this video. They're like, I'm not even sure why I'm watching this. Maybe it will give me clarity about why Granddad was so mean or something. Can you give us some ideas of what sort of symptoms people with PTSD may be experiencing?
Yes, good question. So PTSD, like the most basic definition of it, is a person who relives past experiences as though they are still happening right now in this moment. And so this is like a person who was divorced 10 years ago, but they still talk about the divorce as though they're just went through it. Or somebody, you know, if they have military experience, they may not talk about it so much, but they, like, physiologically in their body have the intensity of stress and adrenaline and like hypervigilance that they are behaving in their everyday life as though they're still in a battle zone or their life is still in imminent danger. And so that's the most basic definition, is, again, reliving past experiences as though they're still happening right now in this moment. And it can be in every level. It can be your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, your actions, your sleeping patterns, your point of view about other people and how you interact in situations. And so it can be very disconcerting for yourself and for the people around you because your behavior isn't matching the current environment. So it's like, it doesn't make sense, you know, and PTSD is not logical. It definitely does not make sense. So but it does make sense for the person experiencing it. Like, for them, you know, the past trauma or life-threatening situations that they made it through were very real at the time, and part of their ability to survive and make it through it is that they had that intensity of presence and awareness in the moment of that trauma. So it was useful at one point in time. You know, it was useful to have that level of intensity of presence with what was going on to make it through it. So, but it can be hard to get past it and step out of it once those experiences are long gone. You know, so that's the basic definition or description of it. There's lots of different nuances and ways that gets expressed. It can show up in your sleeping. A lot of people have nightmares and relive past experiences in their dreaming, or they really have a lot of insomnia and just can't sleep. So that can be an indication. Depression, you know, there's so many variations of depression and so many forms that it takes. A lot of it can be lack of purpose. Like, if you're not surviving a situation, you don't know what to do with yourself. Like, you don't know what to do when it's not a live or die situation. So that can be part of it. It also can be like hypersensitivity, where literally if you hear a loud sound, you jump, or if someone touches you and you didn't see them, like you know, they weren't in your peripheral vision, or they came up from behind you and they touch you, you can literally like jump or start, or, you know, it's extreme response from physical touch or sound that are unexpected. Let's see what else. Yeah, those are some of the basics, but there's also an interesting thing with it that it's a lot of different symptoms all together. It's not just one symptom. It's not just one way that it shows up for a person. It's like each person, what created the PTSD is unique to each person. So their combination of symptoms and how they deal with their symptoms and how they experience their symptoms is totally unique for each individual person. And that's part of what's really challenging for the medical community, or anyone really, to understand or get a grip on what's going on. It's like you can't totally define it. It's different for each person. And so I'm not sure if that answered your question, but that's a taste of it.
Overview. It gives people a bit of a sense as to what they're looking for, or somebody somewhere. I'm getting somebody saying, "Oh, hold on, yeah, and yeah, and yeah,
Right. Yeah. So that reminds me of a few other things too. So for me personally, some of it was being extremely focused on what other people thought about what I was doing.
Yeah.
So I was constantly checking in, am I going to get in trouble for what I'm doing? Is somebody going to get mad about what I'm doing? For me, a lot of it showed up as like a hypervigilance about how the other people around me were behaving and how they were going to react to whatever I was doing. But it was to the extremity of that I would be thinking about that and worried about that even if there was no one around. So that was when I was like, oh boy, okay, this is the real deal here. This is something really going on that this is ridiculous. This is not the way I want to be living my life, where I'm so worried about what other people are thinking about what I'm doing when I'm by myself. I mean, that was like, wow, this is really running my life in ways that I didn't want to acknowledge is running my life. So for me, that was part of the turning point, making new choices, So I think, go ahead.
You go. You had something.
Well, yeah, so that part for me, though, is like, if you are someone with PTSD, if you have any kind of things that you're reliving over and over again from the past that are running your life, and where you're modifying your behavior based on past experiences that are over, and maybe even based on people that aren't in your life right now, that would be an indication. And, and it's possible to change. It's like, it probably took a lot of years or a lot of experiences to get you to where you are today, where you are so locked up in, monitoring and modifying your behavior. That took a while to create. But it was a creation. It was choices that you made and choices of the people around you. But it is changeable. It's like, it is something, if you once didn't have it, it's possible to get to the point in the future where you don't have it again. So to me, that's really exciting. It's like, we are the common denominator of our own life. We're the only person who is with us every moment of every day, through everything we've been through. So like, if you could acknowledge that and recognize that, and you're still here, you're listening to my words, and you're breathing and living and going through your life, you do have you. And that is a really powerful thing, for you to be present with yourself and be there for yourself, maybe in ways that no one else has been able to, because they haven't been what you've been through. You've been there. You know what you require, and you know what you're looking for and what you desire. That was, for me, really powerful recognition. That also was a turning point, is that I really couldn't explain what was going on for me, but I was living it, and it was really, really real for me. So, you know, I just recognized, wow, I can be here with myself and for myself in a way that other people just don't get. And if I made it this far, then probably I can keep going and take some more steps and find a way through. So I would invite everyone listening to this, you know, to keep going. Don't stop where you're at. Don't give up on you. And if you've lived through what you've lived through, and you're here breathing, living, talking, walking, you're really powerful. And you have your own back, maybe in a way that you've never acknowledged. And what if you could have your back in an even more dynamic way going forward from today?
Cool. And I think that's one of the things that I love about Access Consciousness is people aren't gonna, well, if they're facilitating the way Access teaches you to facilitate, they're not gonna say, what you mean, I've been there, I've felt the same way, which was something that I got trained in before I discovered Access. I was like, and I'm like, so when somebody did that to me, I was like, no, you don't. You have no idea what I'm going through. This is me. I'm different. My experiences are different. And the cool thing with Access is we don't try and empathize with you. We ask you questions so that you can be empowered to unlock what's going on for you. And I know on your website, you've got two of my favoriteest questions in all the world.
Yeah.
Questions of mine.
Yeah, the how does it get any better than this, and what else is possible? Yeah, that was so exciting for me when I discovered Access Consciousness, is that it really is about empowering you to know that you know. You know, as I just described, it's like you're the one who's been there with you your whole entire life. You know every nuance about everything you've been through and what that created for you and where you're at and what you're looking for. And so with the Access Consciousness tools, it really it empowers you with an entire toolbox to start working with whatever it is you personally have going on. And so, you know, as I was describing earlier, how PTSD is so unique to each person and their specific combination of symptoms, that the Access Consciousness tools are really powerful because you can pick and choose each of the tools that you require for the moment. And you can play with all the different tools and find out which ones work for you at whatever time. So it's, you know, there's literally hundreds and hundreds of tools available from Access Consciousness to change everything and anything. And so it's a really powerful thing when you take that combination of you and your presence and your awareness and your desire to have something different and experience something different in your own life and your own body. And then you bring in a whole toolbox that supports that in ways that is unique to you. It's just an amazingly powerful 1-2 punch to create change. And the change is lasting. Like, that's one of the things that's so beautiful about these tools. Like, I tried so many different modalities, and a lot of them, they did make some change. And a lot of them, it would be just like a little bit of change for a couple days, and then I would go back to feeling stuck again with whatever I was feeling stuck with. It didn't create truly deep and lasting change as much as the Access Consciousness tools. It's like when you change the energy that you're functioning from in your body and in your life and in the way you're thinking, it's changed. It never goes back. It really is different. So that's what was my experience with Access Consciousness tools anyway, has been that it really creates lasting change based on what I'm choosing, not some practitioner or doctor or somebody telling me anything, but really based on the choices that I'm making. So to me, that was really exciting.
that's another thing that I love about Access. They don't try and tell you how you should live or what you should think or how you should respond to anything. They just give you time for you to actually have choice. One of the most confronting campaigns that Access ever did for me was happiness is just a choice. And the campaign was released, I was like, logically it makes sense, but it doesn't work in my head. And I was really actually quite glad that they did release that campaign. I mean, we're going back quite a few years now. What that campaign actually started in my world was recognition of where I was functioning was actually that happiness was a choice to this point. There was this much available, but I only had to come up to this level. It was either down here or up to this level max. I was like, what tools can I use to change this? And that's actually started me on the road writing my book, Unlocking Unhappy. I was sitting in that level of unhappiness that I considered a happy state.
How do you know?
Yeah. So many people said to me, why don't you call your book Unlocking Happy? It's like, well, I'm not locked in happy, I'm locked in unhappy, and I use tools to get out of unhappy. But what the cool thing is it didn't unlock it, push me out and shut the doors again and I couldn't go back in. It unlocked the doors, allowed happiness to be a choice. But if I really wanted to, I could still go back and sit on my pile of food down the bottom there and unhappy.
True choice.
Yeah, true choice. And that to me is a huge gift from Access Consciousness, because I get to sit there and be all sad and unhappy and depressed and then go, have I had enough of this yet? No, I haven't. And so people are listening to me going, that's not possible, Michelle. You're a load of twaddle. But it is. I just want to share with you guys, it is possible to have the choice to be happy or unhappy. And as you were talking before, with no judgment. What if you could choose to be unhappy and enjoy being unhappy for a moment, rather than it just, you have to be, you're held in that unhappy spot. What if it was a choice? So yeah,
I love that.
And that's where you know, the PTSD keeps you locked in that space, whether it's that place of the event that occurred that was the traumatic, or just, as you say, sitting in the energies of that trauma. And you were saying yourself, you didn't actually have physical trauma or any of that, like life events that you could pinpoint, but you were sitting in the carrot soup thinking you were a carrot.
Yeah, I was.
And so many of us are so aware of what's going on around us, that that level of unhappiness, that level of trauma, it becomes normal.
It does become normal, and that's the crazy part. It's like, what? How did this become normal? And it's a funny thing, because it's like, however you grew up, like, you know, whatever your family is like is normal. Like, so everyone has their own definition of normal, right? So to me, I realized, actually, that was something I realized at a pretty young age. I'm like, wow, there is no such thing as normal. It's just what the group of people you're around calls normal. Because like, I used to go to different people's houses when I was a little kid, just for the fun of it, and go like spend the night and just to see what it was like at their house, like what was their normal. You know? So I realized from early on that, like, wow, everyone's normal is totally different. And I think because I wasn't so locked into one normal, and I saw that so many people had a different normal, like their normal was totally different than mine, that I realized it's the choices that we make. It's like, it's the creation, like whatever you're calling normal, you know, it's the culmination of your experiences, but it's also your points of view and your judgments that you have about it, or that you bought from other people about it. So what if there is no such thing as normal, and everything is actually changeable? And you may not know how, just that one little bit, like what if everything you personally are calling normal is just your variation, and it doesn't have to be so locked in. You know, it doesn't have to be forever, whatever you're currently defining as normal, you know. But, you know, I love what you were saying, Michelle, about unlocking both unhappy and happy. You know, that unlocking unhappy, that's such a powerful thing to recognize, that, yeah, it wasn't the happiness that was the difficulty, or it was the unhappiness that you're getting stuck in. So again, what if wherever you're at right now isn't wrong? You know, if you're having a really hard time getting out of bed, or you're having a really hard time finding anything happy or joyful or even remotely close to that in your life, what if you're not wrong for that? You know, what if you're not wrong for what you've experienced and what you've been through? And what if you're not wrong for the effect that that has had? And it's like, it's just amazing how much we lock in place with the judgments we take about that was wrong what we've experienced, or it's wrong that we can't be happy today or in this moment, or we can't find joy. It's like, what if none of it is wrong? What if it's just what you've been through? What if it's just where you're at today in this moment, and it doesn't have to last forever? You know, so
cool point. I love that, because I've had a number of people talk, you know, in classes and in facilitation sessions, when we're talking about it's our choices that create where we're at today. They really struggle to accept that, because that, in their definition, what occurred is wrong, and if their choices created it, then they must have been wrong to choose those choices. And it's that whole cycle of wrongness. And I talked to Marilyn about the addiction to wrongness recently on another video, and you can check that out on my channel, however you're watching this.
It's a good one.
And what that whole cycle of wrongness, what if your choices that created the situation, that created the PTSD, weren't wrong either?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and that was, for me, a huge unlocking of all of it, is when I could start to step out of all the definitions and justifications I had about how wrong everything was. You know, it's like basically the PTSD that I had was from the interactions with my father primarily. And there were other things that enforced it from my mom and other family members and stuff. But it was like, I had so many judgments about how wrong everything was, how wrong I was, how wrong he was, how wrong the interactions were. And so one of the things that I want to share with you that's a tool that you can use is I started to go back through these past experiences and look at these points of view that I had and things that I defined as definitely wrong and terrible. And I asked myself a question. I said, if this wasn't just wrong, what else is it? And so one of the tools of access consciousness is to question. And it doesn't mean to doubt. It means to look at something with curiosity. It means to question how you currently have defined something, to question what else is possible. So there literally are questions, but it's also truly functioning from taking anything and everything in your life and questioning it, like I just gave an example of. So I truly started to go through past experiences that would come up over and over again. You know, I noticed how I had the same point of view about my dad over and over and over again. And I had lots of different variations of it, right? In different situations and different interactions that were all about how the ways that he was wrong. So I started to truly question that and be like, if he wasn't just wrong, what else is he? If what he did isn't just wrong, what else was it? You know, what else could I be aware of if I wasn't holding on so tightly to the absolute surety that he's just wrong and that's it, you know? And so that space of questioning and truly having no point of view about him and about everything that had occurred, like dropping the judgments, and asking, what else is this? All of a sudden it started to open up all different awarenesses and memories and all, like a lot of things that I couldn't notice if I was just holding on so tightly and locked into my judgment of wrongness. It's like truly, you know, one of the great gifts of that subconsciousness is the recognition that every time we have a judgment about something, we are not able to be aware of anything that doesn't match that judgment. So just by my judgments of how wrong my dad was, I couldn't be aware of everything else that was going on with him, everything else that he is. I only could see what was wrong, and I only could see the proof and the justifications for why my point of view was right, that he was wrong. You know, so that was just unbelievably powerful to begin to let go of those really rigid definitions and points of view that that's all he is and all he was. And as I started to do that, I also began to apply that to everything. So I started to apply it to the experience, like you were just saying, Michelle, like, okay, if what I experienced wasn't wrong, what else is it? Like, what else occurred? What else could I be aware of? What else was going on? And it was amazing how much it unlocked. It was amazing the things that I became aware of. And it was amazing the freedom and empowerment that I gained by letting go of those judgments. It changed everything, really. And it was a lasting change because it's like, you know, no person is all wrong or all right or all bad or all good. We all have everything. You know, we've all done stupid things. We've all done regrettable things. You know, we've all said things we wish we hadn't said or made choices we wish we hadn't chosen. But what, you know, we're a mishmash of amazing and glorious and beautiful and brilliant and wonderful and not so bright and like, wow, that was really pretty horrible. You know, we're everything. So what if we just started to drop the judgments of everything we've been and everything we've done and every choice that we've made up to this point? So that is, you know, a life-changing tool right there, folks. I invite you to play with it.
Love the way that it's not so often you hear that, oh, well, you know, what if they're not wrong, you know, and you hear that side of it, but taking it to that, if I wasn't stuck in the wrongness, what would I be aware of? Opens up such a massive, massive different space. I mean, I've been using that tool on a lot of different things. I mean, in Access Consciousness, there's something we call the distractor implants, and you know, there's 24 of them from memory, and they're things like blame, shame, regret, and guilt. You know, if you weren't blaming yourself or blaming others, what would you be aware of in that moment? you know, and using it on the wrongness of you, or the wrongness of the situation, or the wrongness of them, or I love how it expands that from just trying to make an affirmation of it. He's not wrong, he's not bad, he's not, to, if I wasn't focusing on the wrongness, what else would I be aware of? You know, I'm not going to go into examples from world events, but there are so many stories where once you actually dig down underneath, oh, but he was such a loving father, or but he never showed this sort of thing at work, or, you know, when someone was abusive at home. What aren't you seeing by only seeing the wrongness? It opens up the awareness of the whole being, of the whole situation.
It does.
That's awesome. Awesome. Very grateful.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too. Yeah. So it's you know, there's so many things that we experience in life, and that culmination of all of it, when you hold on to judgment all along the way, it's like, you know, we're taught to judge. We're taught the rightness of judging and how it's appropriate and it's good and it's the way to be. And, you know, what if it isn't the best choice? You know, what if it actually isn't required, and you actually have other choices available besides judgment? You know, there's years and years of practicing this and playing with this, I've discovered there's a whole realm of possibilities. There's a whole world to experience and to live beyond judgment. And that's way more fun, way more spectacular, way more amazing. And so many more possibilities open up when you drop the judgment of yourself and of other people. It's spectacular. And to me, again, I can't really emphasize enough how powerful of a transformation it's been for me in my own life by dropping judgment. And, you know, it's, you know, I still judge sometimes, you know, judging myself or judging others. And every time I let go of the judgment, life becomes better. I become better. The people around me become better. I become more aware of things I wasn't aware of. I have more choices, and really everything becomes a lot more beautiful and a lot easier. You know, it takes a lot of energy to judge, and it really takes even more to hold that judgment in place. You know, so wow, there's so much energy frees up when you let go of the judgments. There's so much more available. So I invite you to try it out. You know, just try it for 5 minutes. Try it for one day. You know, play with it to find out for yourself what it's like.
And what I love about getting rid of judgment is so often they're like this pile of cards, and it's all balancing on one card, and you've got this huge, like, pyramid of crap. I'm going to use that word. It's my channel. I can say it. You know, this huge pile of crap floating on top of this one little card, and you get rid of that one judgment, and that whole lot just goes, and it's gone. And that to me is just like so much fun to see those sorts of things just exploding and letting more joy into people's lives. It's so fun.
It's undescribable how spectacular it is to let go of the judgments. I mean, it really is. It's like, wow, this is just, wow, who knew? You know, it's like, it's the secret that everyone needs to know.
Absolutely. And the one of the, you know, you were asking what would I, if I wasn't sitting in the wrongness, what would I be aware of? And it's to me, like, I mean, we've got tools on how to destroy and uncreate your judgments and things like that. But being willing to be aware beyond the judgment actually makes that judgment just a choice, because you're then aware of what else is possible. Going back to that, one of my favorite questions, what else is possible?
Yes. That's a really good one. Yeah, so that space of awareness is, it's something we can choose, and it's something that opens up infinite choices. It's like, if you're judging you, or you're judging what you've experienced, or judging other people, your only choice available is to judge and to hold that judgment in place and keep it going. You don't have any other choices. So by that choice and the act of letting go of those judgments, all of a sudden you have all sorts of different choices available. You have different choices about how you view a situation or a person. You have different choices about how you feel about it. You have all these different energies that become available. And the things that are locking the post-traumatic stress in place, suddenly those blocks fall away, and what has made it so unchangeable starts to fall apart, and there begins to be openings that make it changeable. It's like post-traumatic stress and all the symptoms of it do not have to be forever. Really, one of the most powerful things that keeps the cycle going and holds it in place is our judgments about it, and the judgments about ourselves based on it. So if you would give yourself the gift of playing with this and letting go of some of those judgments, you'll start to find a space for you. You'll start to find a space available that doesn't include PTSD and doesn't include judgment, because you can't actually have judgment and you at the same time. It's like, you can have judgments about you, which isn't you, it's just a judgment, or you can let it go, and you can actually have you, the being you truly are underneath all those judgments and beyond all those judgments, that has infinite choice and has the ability to really change anything, as long as you let go of those judgments. So.
Another very, very cool tool that I know you and I both adore, that can be a massive gift in changing PTSD, and that's called access bars, with its little special twist, like the little lime in the top.
Yeah, I love it. Yay.
Drink you can have access bars, but you can have access bars with the lemon or lime. How did access bars contribute to changing stuff for you? And tell us a little bit about that and what it is and how it works. And
yeah, absolutely. So access bars is a modality. It's basically 32 points on the head that you have a practitioner gently touch them, and there's a bunch of different ones. They're all over the head. Yeah. There you go.
Doing this, guys, is to show you it is a gentle touch. It's gentle. Yeah. It's not a going to squeeze the no. It's a gentle touch, and if somebody's squeezing it, they're not doing it right. Please say that hurts. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. All true. Yeah. So it's very gentle, and basically what it is that we have these points on our head. So for example, there's one right here. So this is a bar of energy that goes through the head, and these are the end points of that bar. And simply by having a practitioner touch those points, you're releasing the electromagnetic component of thoughts, feelings, and emotions, and judgments, and points of view, and all sorts of polarity that we have bought into and lived by and been functioning by. And so simply by having a practitioner touch those points, it releases like 5,000 to 10,000 years of crap. Thoughts, feelings, emotions, judgments, points of view, considerations, decisions. And so it's really that simple. You lay out a massage table, or you sit in a chair or lay on the couch with somebody, and they touch those points over the course of about an hour or an hour and a half for one session. And it just erases all of this energy and all of the energy that's locked in place. And it's locked in your body, but it's also locked in your reality. It's locked in your life, and it's locked in how you're functioning. So simply by having these points touched, it's like pressing delete button on your computer, and it literally is just deleting these energies and throwing out these files. Delete, 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 delete. Really simple. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to believe in it. You just have to lay there and let somebody touch these points. And it does so many things, but it's going to be a little bit different for each person. And each time you experience it, it's going to be a little bit different because you're different each time you get your bars run. So all sorts of things occur, but basically, like how we've been talking about these judgments, this is another way to eliminate judgments and release them and let them go without even cognitively having to know what they are exactly or how you got them or who you got them from. Doesn't matter. It's not relevant. Literally just erases them and lets them go. So you can start being present in your life without judgment. So that's a really basic description of it. And I try to get my bars run at least once a week if I can. It's an amazing process that just continues to gift more and more ease and the ability to be present with everything in your life without a judgment or point of view about it. And I'll share my first experience of bars. The session itself was really is very relaxing and nurturing, and I felt different, but I couldn't necessarily specify what had happened or what was different. And what I noticed in particular, though, over the course of the next couple of weeks is that I wasn't reacting to people the same way that I used to. I used to be very, very reactionary to every tone of voice and how people said stuff and what they said and all sorts of things. And I noticed that my interactions with people, in my everyday life were just different. I didn't have the reactions that I normally do. I wasn't contracting like I used to from the tone of voice, for example. That used to be something that would trigger me intensely, people's tone of voice. And if there was any little bit of anger or intensity in the tone of voice, like, so I noticed I just wasn't reacting. I was like, it was no big deal. So to me, when I recognized that, I was like, whoa, that is huge. To not be reacting like I was, and not even like all I did was lay on a massage table. That's crazy and cool. So,
but hearing talk of like you were talking earlier about people having nightmares and things like that, and there was a lady in Australia whose husband was in the Green Berets, which is like the Secret Service type thing, and she learned how to do the bars, and she went home and ran the bars on her husband. No point of view about what it was going to change. She just was doing what she'd learned in this class. And prior to that, he had she'd wake up in the middle of the night and he was strangling her and fighting her as if he was in the war zone that he experienced. And after he had his bars run, he stopped doing that and started sleeping. Yeah. And so she actually went around and taught all the other wives in his platoon how to run bars. And because it made such a change in their reality. The guys just thought the girls were doing this weird thing, and I'm just going to tell you, darling. But it changed things for them. So the bars is not a difficult thing to learn either. It's something that you can learn. You can, share with a friend and do swaps and things like that. And it's such a gift in so many ways. I adore having my bars run.
Yeah, so there's go to the Access Consciousness website, go to accessconsciousness.com. Is there accessbars.com also? Is that a website?
Or accessconsciousness.com/bars. I also have a link to that on my website, accessu.co.nz. And there are facilitators and practitioners around the world. There are tens of thousands of practitioners around the world. There are thousands of facilitators that teach classes around the world. Please, please, please. We are now in 179 different countries around the world. So please don't use as an excuse. There is someone somewhere.
Yeah, there's literally tens of thousands of practitioners now all around the world. So you can get a private session to experience it, or you can find a facilitator, and it's just a one-day class. And in one day, you learn how to give sessions and you receive sessions, so you experience it, and you leave the day with the ability to run other people's bars and everything you need to know about it. And you really actually can start a practice if you wanted to. You could start a business running people's bars just from this one-day class. Yeah. And there's, a process if you wanted to teach the class as well that's a little bit more involved, but there's all sorts of possibilities with it. It's really simple and it's incredibly nurturing process. So if you have PTSD or you don't have PTSD, I'd highly, highly recommend at least experiencing it, if not taking the one-day class and learning how to do it, so you can have it in your everyday life and have it as an ongoing tool in your toolbox. So it's a good one.
We had a family bars night. We put a movie on the big screen, got the chairs out, and while since the kids had had their bars run, they'd made excuses time and time again not to have them run. And my eldest, 16, he said to me, "Mum, I'm never making excuses again. I'd learned to without having my bars run, but life is so much better when you've had them run."
It's amazing. I know. It's like it's life changing. It really is. I mean, basically, like, I know as soon as I'm getting cranky, if I'm getting grumpy or sad or upset and it just doesn't go away, and there's also not really any particular reason for it per se, I'm just having a grumpy pants day, time to get my bars run. That's a sure indication. And
my kids will come to me if I'm having a grumpy pants day and go, "Mum, can I run your bars?"
Yeah. Yeah. It's awesome.
If you've got kids in your life, take them along with you to the class.
Yeah.
Up to the age of until they turn 16. So you can come to the class for free. You come to the class, bring the kids, they learn it as well, and they can run it on you. You can run it on them. Yeah. And how does it get any better than that? Now,
yeah, that's a guess.
I am so grateful that you've joined me today. I really get a sense that the information that you've shared with us has been a gift to people's worlds just by hearing you talk about it. So your website is
endingptsd.com, and you can also, we'll post it, and you can also find me on the Access Consciousness website, Heather P. Smith, and so you can find me there. And also I have a group on Facebook called Ending PTSD, if you'd like to check that out. Haven't been very active for a while, but I promise I'm going to start again. But the endingptsd.com website has all sorts of tools that are free and reminders, and it's just a great place to go when you're having a bad day and you need something, you don't know what. I really create that as a resource for whenever you need a tool, if you're feeling stuck with post-traumatic stress. So that's there for you. So check it out. And oh my gosh, Michelle, thank you so much for having me. It's really been a pleasure talking with you. It's been far too long since we played. And really grateful for what you've created, Unlocking Unhappy. That's fantastic, brilliant. And congratulations on that. So thank you for your creation.
And that book really is just a very short little read. It's like 45 minutes. but it's got a whole series of different tools that you can use and how to use them. And they're the tools that I use to unlock unhappy. So these are tools that I've used myself. I know they work.
Yeah.
Been through training and just spouting out what was in the textbook. These are tools I've used myself and I know they work. So they're awesome and you're awesome. I'm so grateful that you joined us, everybody watching this. You know, it's all well and good me talking to Heather, but this is done for you. What else is possible in your life and living that you haven't even imagined yet? And what if you were to ask that question, if I wasn't stuck in my PTSD, what would I be aware of? How does it get better than this? What else is possible?
What else is possible?
Thank you so much. And thank you, Heather, for joining me. I'm so grateful. How much fun can we all have now that wasn't possible before? I adore you all. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.